was at a conference last week in Vienna in which I was talking about the evolution of conflict. And the little backdrop is that we really see conflict as having evolved through three stages. By evolved, I don't mean we've left the first stage totally behind and we're into the third. But the first stage we call Cain and Abel, which is we disagree, I'm more powerful than you, Cain kills Abel. Power prevails. And that's with us in the world still, both in terms of individual conflict, it could be family conflict. Cain and Abel, I think, was the first recorded conflict in the Judeo-Christian tradition. And it was a family conflict. But today, if it's interpersonal disputes, or if it's national disputes, or if it's totalitarian regimes, which are present very much in the world, or conflicts between countries, as we all know, the power model, as I call it, still prevails. In Western societies, at least in fairly recent history, given the history of humanity, is the model where there's a judge on top who's responsive to a legal framework, and that legal framework has to be responsive to the people. So, for example, the Nazi era, there were judges, and they were not applying a system of law that was responsive to general human principles or to the public at large. They were a legal system that was really within the Cain and Abel paradigm for us. But the traditional system of law is a system of law that's responsive to some kind of general population, often imperfectly, applied by judges to conflicts. So you have the law, you have the judge, you have the two parties or more parties, and between the judge and the parties we often have lawyers so that they can help interpret the law. And this has enormous constructive power. It also has ways of channeling conflict in certain directions that does not necessarily resolve the conflict at a deeper level, and often does not deal with many aspects of conflict that separate human beings. It can lead to a solution, which is good, and is a very healthy system, and I would never want it to lead, no matter how great mediation or collaborative practice get, without the ground of the traditional system. I think we'd be in big, big trouble. Indeed, one of the dangers right now is that mediation is being offered in some places in the United States to poor people as an alternative to, not an alternative that they can choose this or that. They get mediation, can't go to court. It's a small dispute. And that's a true misfortune. So you have, ideally, the grounding of the legal system. A lot of the energies of conflict are channeled in a particular way in the traditional legal system, such as right and wrong. It's okay. You can't just yell in court, I hate this person, or things like that. And generally the lawyers do the talking. But you can have a sense of injustice, sense of I'm right, that side is wrong, of real judgment. Those kinds of qualities, which I think often keep us stuck in conflict, are there very much and legitimized. So much so that I think we all know that one of the leading television programs every night in the United States are lawyer programs. And you know who the good guys are and the bad guys are pretty quick. And then or what the crime was or what the injustice was. And then are the lawyers going to be able to get the bad guy and bring the bad guy to justice? That has enormous power. You're not going to see every night mediation programs or ever, because that energy of conflict is very much in our psyches. So if we go back to these developmental stages of law, from Cain and Abel to the traditional system with the judge sitting on top responsive to the law, the lawyers, and then the parties. The third system is helping people to resolve their own disputes. For me, both mediation and collaborative practice are from that impulse. And there, as we see it, whether it's the mediator or the collaborative professionals, they're not on top. They're there, ideally, although there's a danger it won't be true, they're there to support the parties who are on top to find a resolution that truly works for them. And that's a big change. And to help them do it with the backdrop of the traditional system as a choice. And I know collaborative, there's an agreement not to go that way, but there's also an understanding that people could leave the collaborative process and go that way. So this is a system that really empowers parties to reach a resolution that really works for them with the backdrop of our traditional legal system. Now, this goes back to the story. So with those three phases in mind, can enable or power traditional legal system and alternatives such as mediation and collaborative practice. We've done trainings a lot in California and New York. Harry lives in California, I live in New York. And in one of our New York trainings, I think it was about 96, several people from Israel came, including the first woman Brigadier General of the Israeli Defense Forces and the first woman Brigadier General of the Israeli Police Forces. Amira Dotan, who later became a member of the Knesset, and Hannah Kotzer Sapir, very, very good friends, who, after our training, established one of the first mediation centers in Israel and Tel Aviv. And Amira tells this wonderful story. She was very, very touched by the mediation training. It really, in my view, and I've said that there was recently a ceremony honoring, at Cardozo Law School, honoring Amira with an award for Peacemaker of the Year that had been given to Nelson Mandela, Bill Clinton, several other people. And she received it acknowledging that she felt she was one of many people who were doing that kind of work. And that's Amira. And after she went back to Israel from our first training and established this mediation center, she asked for a meeting with the former chief rabbi of Israel to talk about mediation, to promote mediation. And she described mediation to him. And there's a tradition in Jewish, particularly Jewish Hasidic learning, where the rabbi asks questions in usually a very demanding way, so that the students really search and really come prepared. So she described mediation. And he said, Amira, I have a question. She said, yes, Rabbi. He said, what did Cain say to Abel, or Abel say to Cain, before Cain killed Abel? She thought and thought. He said, I'm asking you again, what did Cain say to Abel, or Abel say to Cain before Cain killed Abel? Don't forget, the Bible is very exact in terms of who begat whom, who said what to whom. The words are all there. So I ask you again, what did Cain say to Abel, or Abel say to Cain before Cain killed Abel? And she said, Rabbi, I'm very sorry, but I don't remember anything that was said. He said, you're absolutely right. That's why I think you're onto something with this mediation. So, and that's true. We're trying to find a way for people in conflict to talk with each other.